Welcome everyone, welcome to Abora Magazine, Abora Talk. And today we are guessing Cristian Paul, the artist, the Mexican artist living in Chicago, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
he defines himself as an illustrator, artist, and a wise man, if we can say so.
Yeah. Quote unquote wise
Definitely.
man.
He loves wearing clothes from the 30s and 40s, and he's inspired from the old times to create a better future. And I think, me personally, that he's definitely on the perfect way, on the perfect road to go there. Welcome to Abora Talk, Cristian. It's a pleasure, it's an honor to have you here with us and to ask you some questions about art, about the society, about your vision. As an artist, you have a large vision, and you have this general view on the word, and we are very interested on knowing the way you see the word from your eyes. So welcome, and thank you for being with us today. So the first question we're going to start with is, please, Cristian, if you may, how do you define yourself as an artist?
Well, I define myself as a artist who, I guess, like anybody or anyone else, I enjoy beauty. I enjoy beauty in every shape or form there is possible. But the art that like moves me the most, or like that I feel the most passionate, is whenever there's like politics involved into it. Um, I've noticed that like whenever there's like a historical moment that like triggers me in a way, I just like get really fixated to like what's going on, and I feel that um, when I'm given the chance to speak about these issues, I tend to come up with metaphors or symbolisms that are able to deliver a message through one image. So that's how I describe myself. I guess like I have a sense of duality with my art. Like I can go like the classical route of like what people expect art it is, and I can go the other path where I need to express a feeling that I find really concerning. So there's these two versions of myself. Um, but yet, if I have to describe also my art as, as like skills and everything, I would say like the most fundamental skills that I have, or the most known aspects of my work, is just the use of graphic line work, excessive line work actually, because I enjoy like this, kind of movement that I'm able to create with it. And also I see myself as an artist that it's, passionate about color. Like I love color, I love vibrancy, I love harmony, and that is a very descriptive aspect of my work.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we can see it. For me, who know you a little bit, I can definitely see it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I was thinking about one thing that you talked about before we start actually the interview, is the inspiration you get before starting an artwork.
Yeah.
Inspires you. From where does this inspiration come? I mean, before you start.
Well, I guess it depends. Sometimes it can come from photography. For example, when it comes to like beauty paintings or beauty portraits, I've always been inclined or inspired by the works of Richard Avedon, which he's a famous photographer. He did a lot of like fashion images and stuff, but like he also created more like documentary photography that I always found like really fascinating, just because he was always able to capture a sensitive or a sensible beauty that not a lot of photographers are able to capture. Politics is also another of my biggest motivators for art. As a matter of fact, with like everything that is going on in the world, like my brain can't stop thinking about it. And as I mentioned to you earlier, before the interview started, like I started working on this like political illustration about what's going on in the world. And I guess my inspiration can come from beauty and sometimes even from concern, right? So it's like it's almost like a sacred and profound, um, I guess, inspirations that I get. Like I tend to take things that are not necessarily easy to understand, or better said, like that are more complicated to understand. But I try to make them into something that is more palpable and more digestible for people to understand my meaning, my reasoning, my vision of the world, and gain gain some sort of knowledge out of it too. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, um, me personally, for someone who owns one of your art, I could see it in the work you have put on this artwork, and I can definitely confirm that. I can definitely confirm that.
Yeah. I mean, and it comes from like different like realms. Like, for example, I've always been inclined, or I've always like, when it comes to like the aspect of beauty of my work, I've always loved the work of Gustav Klimt. I've always enjoyed like the way he uses models as like something so ethereal and quite sexual. And I know for like a lot of people nowadays, like some of his work may not be seen as kind of like the standard of what society should be, and I totally agree. But I mean, there's something so in the moment that I find it really appealing, like very interesting to. I mean, when you see a painting of Gustav Klimt of one of these women, you kind of want to know what was going on in her backstory or in that moment. And like those like shots or like almost like still lives that he produced are something that I always find very fascinating. Obviously, I'm mentioning him just to like give a better vision or a better visual of people who are like becoming aware of my work and actually see that similarity on my work, right? Because like at the end of the day, I feel like most of the art pieces that are out there, or like even contemporary artists who are doing work, it almost feels like everything has been done. So it's hard not to find inspiration through other artists. But yes, in my work, you can see somehow like glimpses of Gustav Klimt, for example, like the one that that I gave to you, the hair aesthetic. It reminds me a lot of Gustav Klimt when he did like the Four Seasons, like the mural. I forgot the name,
Yes.
but when he did like the mural with this women, and all of these women had like very whimsical hair that is almost like flowing and going in curls and everything. Like that's definitely an inspiration from Gustav Klimt, and other influences that I have. Uh, Cassandra Rodin, which is an illustrator from Russia, and but I've always liked her grungy aesthetic. Uh, Frida Kahlo is also another one that I like. Cicados, which is another Mexican artist that portray like immigration in this country, or just immigration in general in Latin America. Like has always been part of my biggest influences.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's very, very interesting to see an artist like you. I mean, how an artist like you get inspired and builds himself. It's just very interesting. I find it very fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
No,
Um,
thank you.
Talking about Frida Kahlo, you talked about her, and you said that it was a real influence that you have. Yeah, you said it was a little bit cliche, but I don't think so. Me personally, I don't think it's cliche because when an artist is talented, he is talented or she is talented, so there is no point to say it's cliche. So you said this, and it was very interesting because she said some very interesting things. Is that she started art out of boredom. You know, she just started art because she had this accident and she was
Right.
bad for a year. And the question is that I wanted to ask you is, what do you think actually of this inspiration that people get from a trauma?
Um, I feel that sometimes creativity can be misunderstood or misused, because I do believe that with creativity there's a really I mean creativity just in general is just a great outlet to express those emotions, to have this kind of like feeling of needing to release a certain weight from your body or your soul in this case. Like in terms of like Frida Kahlo, I think that her life in general was not easy. I mean, she not only was like suffering from so many medical issues, but she also had a tough life in her relationships. Obviously, her husband, with her family, with money. Um, it's, I think sometimes when you do not follow like a regular or a stereotypical lifestyle, it does pushes you, whether you like it or not, to perceive the world through a different glass. And I think that when it comes to like pain and traumas, there's there's a very difficult path, or like there's like different paths to take, but like it's always really hard to use that let's say negativity into something productive, or into something that is you know healing you basically. I was just watching a video about this woman who found poetry as a source of release through the traumas that she went, like being sexually abused and mistreated by society. And I think sometimes art is capable not only to help you release that, but also to help you find a community, which is very odd. Like I don't, not a lot of people tend to see that, but I mean, my experience with the work of Frida Kahlo, and not only her, but even Botero, which is a Colombian artist, is that like there has been aspects or moments in their lives that I have been able to say like, oh, I can understand where you're going through. I think one of my favorite paintings from Frida Kahlo, and it's like tiny. It's called Just a Small Nips, which is a it's just an image
I like it.
of, yeah, it's an image of this woman being stabbed by her husband. Um, the circumstances I cannot remember, but it was on the newspaper, and she made a painting based on what he said to the judge. When he was in court, this person who killed his wife, he was just like, I just gave her a couple of nips, just a few nips. But like that pain of like that emotional pain of being like, I don't know, mistreated by somebody that you really love is just the most perfect, and just the most perfect metaphor that you can come up with as like, how does it feel to have your heart broken, right?
Yeah.
Also with like, I mean, in a historical context, I feel, because like with everything that is happening right now in Mexico, especially with the femicides, I think that's the word in English, with like all of the violence that women have been going through for generations and generations. I feel like this painting is just not only a very alluring emotional context from Frida's past or Frida's life, but it does show like a reality that women in Mexico has gone through, of like the violence against women just because of their gender. And this is like a cycle that hasn't been able to stop. And right now, sadly, not a lot of people are like bothered to do something about it. Uh, I mean, I do see myself as a feminist, even though I'm a man. But I do agree. I feel like in Mexico there has been like a very macho culture. But going back to the conversation, trauma is sometimes unescapable as an artist. I feel trauma sometimes can be that poison that you're able to turn into medicine. And by accepting the troubles that you have in your past, you also open yourself to the opportunity to heal yourself. And I think there's a really good opportunity there for an artist to grow through those traumas. It brings me to an artist in my head. He's a British artist. Oh my god, I can't remember his name. I have to look for it. But it reminds me a lot of one of his paintings that he did. It was called a fairy stroke. Um, this artist was pretty much institutionalized, clinically ill.
Mm-hmm.
For obvious reasons. He actually killed a woman in France. He killed her, and then he was captured by the police, and they sent him into an asylum. And what happened afterwards is that, like, through the treatment, they also gave him a canvas and paintings to help him kind of like cope with what he did and stuff. And his work is very detailed. It's really small work, actually. And like the most of the characters that he creates are like tiny, very minuscule, but you're able to see fairies and gnomes and this and that. And it's just, it's kind of an interesting analysis to do. If you're interested in like learning how trauma works and stuff, it's just really interesting to see how like these people that have committed like really, really horrible crimes, or they have gone through really, really horrible life paths, have been able to create some sort of beauty that it's unimaginable, right? So yes, going back to your answer, and I feel like I've repeated myself plenty.
No problem. No.
I do think that trauma, it's unescapable, but trauma can be the, you know, the medicine that we need to like get rid of the poison in ourselves.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting to know your vision about it, because it's very me. I have friends that actually became very talented in drawings and painting after having some car accident. And I have one actually that had a car accident, and another one that lost his mom. So they changed it completely. One he went, sorry, into music, and the other went into painting. And the change is just, I cannot even describe it. It changed completely their personality. It became like someone else.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. I mean, art is almost as human behavior, whether we want it or not. It is human behavior.
Yeah.
And every artist in contemporary art, or even in the past, well, I would say contemporary art, but like most artists that went through like hardships and battles have created like outstanding, you know, pieces of art. Like Picasso, for example, with the Blue Period. I mean, he was really depressed after the death of his friend.
Yes.
And he created like all these beautiful images in a blue palette that
Van Gogh also. Van Gogh was a traumatized.
Yeah, Van Gogh was, I mean, what better artist can you describe than him for that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Going ahead on Frida, her art was judged as being naive and popular. Would you say the same thing about your art, or
about her art or my art?
No, her art was judged as being naive and popular. I said, as you said, that you were inspired by her. She's one of your inspiration. Would you say about the same thing about your art?
Yeah, I would say so. And there's nothing wrong to it. I feel like it's good sometimes to be naive. I mean, there's a level of innocence that is always sweet to look at when you see these pieces of art. I mean, if you talk about Frida Kahlo and her naivete, she was not, in comparison to Diego Rivera, I mean, she was not like a very technical artist, right? Diego Rivera, he went to Italy to learn how to paint frescoes and stuff like that. When Frida Kahlo, I mean, she painted out of, you know, maybe boredom or loneliness. I would much rather stick to loneliness because of her condition. But
what about you? What about your art?
I think I paint because it brings me peace. So I paint because it brings me peace. I love doing what I do. And if I had to kind of correlate my art to Frida's, I think I paint not necessarily aspects of my life, but people that have inspired me in my life. And I mentioned this because most of my artwork, it does really revolve a lot around women, and I see this because I think growing up in Mexico, I was very blessed and very fortunate to be able to have my grandmother and my mother, right? Like my grandmother's story is very unique to me, and my mother, being a single mom, she had to, like, you know, play two roles, you know, the father and the mother, and that was not easy to do. And yeah, I think that's like one of the biggest influences that I have in my life, because unintentionally they kind of like went against the patriarchy, right? Not because they wanted to be feminists, or not because they wanted to be, you know, revolutionaries, but basically it was because of the circumstances that they lived, right? Like my grandmother, I mean, I'll share a couple of stories. Like one of my favorite stories that I have from my grandmother is the way she would actually protect her children. So my family grew up in like the middle of nowhere in Mexico, and my grandma used to tell me as since I was a kid, like, Christian, I'm gonna teach you how to kill a snake. I've never killed a snake in my life, never. I don't think I'll ever will. But she had to do it because of the circumstances, right? Like there was nothing where they came from. It was the place. The name of this town is con La Barranquilla. I actually posted a couple of pictures on Instagram of where they come from and stuff. It's pretty. It's really beautiful, beautiful. But but yeah, like she would tell me these stories of how she had like I would say like 14 kids to 16 kids in the house, and my grandfather had to leave to United States to make some money because there was no job opportunities, and because we depended so much on agriculture. There were years that were really good for us, and there were other years that, like, you know, like dry season, my father had to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And because she was technically seen as a single mother, she had to behave as a man, right? And my favorite stories of her, it's snakes, right? Like, so she would tell me that she would step on the head of a snake with her high heels, and she would, like, you know, like drill the skull of the snake with a heel, and then the snake would actually go around her foot. But at 5 minutes afterwards, it will be completely dead. Why is this story relevant? Because it was my grandmother, sorry, it was my grandmother behaving in a very unladylike way, but she had to do it because there was nobody for her. She had to fight. She had to fight for her life. She had to fight for my family's life. All of these things are really important to me. And whenever I paint, and when I get to paint like a woman and stuff, I never like to paint a woman that is just beautiful. I like to paint women that are strong and individualistic and tough and unequal to a man. You know, like, I am fascinated to that woman because I grew up with that woman. And my mother was the same. I mean, she was a single mom. My father just left us. And the stories that she went through just because she was a woman are pretty tough. I mean, are really, really freaking tough. You know, like, nobody giving her the respect. She will go to a business meeting and they just saw her as like the pretty hot businesswoman. And she was like, fuck you guys. Like, I'm not just a hot woman. I'm not a hot piece of meat or anything. I'm an individual, and I don't want to be judged by the way I look. I want to be judged by my intellect and my perseverance and stuff. And my art, women are a big influence of my life. You know, I'm not saying that like I speak to all women, because maybe I haven't done it in the past, or maybe I haven't been more inclusive, you know.
Yeah.
But overall, like, I know that I have this like love for women, and I have this love for strong women, you know, regardless of background or anything. But yeah, I mean, I've met really strong women that have inspired me in my life. And I'm very, very pleased and grateful for that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, we all are inspired by women. I think it's a whole inspiration that gives us as a man the power of facing life. Because me personally, between bricks, I think that if it was not for women that we had around us when we were kids, we would not be a full man as we are today. So I think that it definitely defines the men we are.
Well, and it's not so much about gender, because like there's brave fathers that are brave.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Sorry, I'm not saying that. No, I'm just saying that it complete. You know, it just complete the role of a mom. Mostly, I'm talking about the role of a mom. I'm talking about me personally. My mom was very important in my life, and I can see also for yourself that it's being as a man, having an independent woman as a mom changes you forever. I mean, it really builds the full man you can be.
Yeah, and also, like, I mean, as you get older and you learn more about society and even the patriarchy and stuff, it's really kind of badass to know that you had a mother that was like, fuck this, you know, like, fuck you. Like, I don't, you know, if I have to stay single and be a single mother because of what you guys expect of me, then fuck you guys. Like, I don't need any of this shit. I mean, my mom is so fucking cool. Like, in between breaks, as you know, or I mean, even if you want to share it, like on the interview, like, I don't care. I think this is it's pretty radical but cool story of my mom. So growing up, me and my brother, as when my parents got divorced, like I think it was 2 or 3 years later, there was ransom notes on my house, you know, of somebody, I don't know who this person was, but like they were sending letters to my mother saying, hey, if you don't give us this amount of money, you'll find the decapitated heads of your kids at this place. And this is a true story, like this actually happened. So I didn't understand it growing up. I was a kid, but I do remember that like every weekend, like I would actually stay at a hotel or just a different city, but I didn't know why. It was just happening. It was kind of like my upbringing. And I also remember how there was people coming into my house giving us classes of how to like protect ourselves, right? Like how to like, you know, as a kid, like I remember saying like, if there's like a stranger, please do this and do that. I remember being more excited by the fact that these people brought a projector into my house than what they were actually talking about. I was like, whoa, there's like a freaking like cinema in my house, in my living room. And I'm like the lucky one that I get to see this. I don't understand what the movie's about, but like I got a projector in my house. But now like thinking about it, I was like, oh shit, like I should have paid better attention so I wouldn't get kidnapped.
Yeah.
But my mom started carrying a gun, you know, out of protection because things were getting really, really out of hand.
Yeah.
And there was this guy who was becoming really aggressive to her one day outside of her office, and that was because like he needed to change like his mirrors of his car. And my mom very politely came out and she's like, "Excuse me, sir, like I hope you don't mind, but I would like you if you could move to, you know, to like the next door or something because you are blocking the entrance of my clients, and I need you to, you know, to just kind of respect this property in that term, right? Sorry if I disturb you." And then this guy, he's just like looks at her and she's like, "You see this?" Like he's holding the mirrors. He's like, "You see this? Until I fix this and fix this, I may pay attention to you, but to me, you're worthless. Your voice is nothing." So she was really upset about it. She would always have like this like small little gun. She's such a bitch. She has more balls than I do, I think. But she came out with the gun. She's like carrying the purse with her, right? And she's like, oh, high heels.
Yeah.
The purse. She pulls the gun out and she's like, "You see this? There's 5 bullets in this gun. Each bullet is gonna go to one of your tires, and the last one might be to you. Are you gonna move or not?" He just like fucking left. I'm like, "Mom, you're not supposed to do that. Like, you can go to jail and stuff." And she's like, "I don't give a fuck, Christian. Like, they see me as a woman and they think that I'm like not strong. And like until I behave like this, they give me the respect that I deserve." And it sucks that like it has to go to that point for like my mother gets some sort of respect, right? Like that's I'm not condemning what she is doing because it is an act. It is a little bit violent. It's pretty violent. But I also understand like that kind of frustration. Right? Like, fuck.
Yeah, she was forced to. She was
forced to, and this was very common in her life, you know. So my mother has always been a very strong icon, and an icon or an image that I see as perseverance. You know, whenever I'm like sad or anything, I call my mom and she's like, "Fuck this." It's just like, keep on pushing, keep on pushing, keep on pushing. I'm like, okay, mom. All right.
That's good. That's perfect. That's a perfect example to have as a mom. Honestly, it's perfect.
Yeah.
We're going to jump to another kind of topic. As last time we talked about the new generation of art, which is the NFT art, the digital art. And
right.
I remember we said that, I said that it's not really new. It started like 15 years, 20 years ago, but now today we have this huge movement of digital art with the digital currency. And you, if I remember, you said that it was kind of easy with the technology and all, because you talked about the brushes that you as an artist need and all, and that by making it with a laptop with a tablet was much more easier. I'm not here to say if I agree or not, but the thing is, the question I wanted to ask you is, don't you think that this new way of making art also is a part of the revolution of art?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No questions asked. I mean, absolutely. I do think that like people are still gonna crave, you know, old versions of art, or just like, you know, your more cliche, if you want to put it that way, like your more traditional form of art. I think that's a better word. But yes, this is absolutely revolutionizing the world. And the art scene. I think there's a lot of pros to it. I do think that it gives a sense of authority to the artists, right? Like they're able to see their work being, you know,
exposed and sold.
Exposed, and not only exposed but like valued, right? And they have a control with that. Like you're kind of like, you know, taking away the middleman, right? Like the art galleries, and you're also taking away the collector and stuff like that. So yes, like it's revolutionary in its way. And also, like, I mean, these are really revolutionary times. It'll be dumb for me to say no when like the whole world has completely changed in the past 3 years, right? In this like 3 years, we've seen more innovations, whether we like it or not, that are gonna define the rest of our existence, basically. So I agree. I mean, this is completely changing. Whether you think it's for the good or not, like that's your own choice, your own decision. But this is definitely gonna this is already revolutionized the whole world. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good because a lot of I see a lot of artists getting into it. Me personally, I'm completely on it, and I think that it's actually just a part of the new age. You know, we are assisting to a new age of a new era of art.
Right.
Just
no, you're right.
Art.
I mean, and it's just a transition phase, right? Like, for example, right now we may not have the galleries, or the collectors, but come on, like in the future, they're still gonna exist. You know, it's just all digitalized. So it's just a matter of like getting yourself into it, or at least building a good group of people that are gonna support you into this new endeavor. Like, for example, with me, like I don't understand the process of like how, you know, how to put it out there. And I've tried, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm too old, but in reality, I'm not much of a technological person. So I'm just like bored right away. But even though I produce a lot of digital art, I don't understand. I really find it difficult to like how to turn anything into NFT. But but overall, like, I mean, it's a transitional phase, because like maybe in the future I may not be able to do it myself, but I might get somebody to help me out, you know, to like put it out there, right? And that's already like a collector, like an art collector or something. And then like I'm sure that like another businessman will come up with like an art gallery, a virtual art gallery of NFTs for people to buy. It's just how the world is going. Like this is the direction that we're taking it.
Yeah.
And I mean, as much as you want to fight it, like it's just part of it, and there's no escape to it.
Yeah.
I mean, even right now, the fact that you and I are talking and having an interview online, it only shows that like there's no turning back to this.
No.
There isn't.
Yeah, definitely.
We can't fight it.
Definitely. There's also one thing we talked about politics. You said that your art was very political, and that you were inspired also by the politics that is going on in the world. And you said one thing. I quote you. You said art helped me to understand what was going on.
Yeah. Stand by it.
I wanted to ask you, is that what you're trying to do with your art, to make people understand?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously I feel like art in general can be quite subjective, and it can always be analyzed through interpretations of people. But no, yeah, like with my art, with like the political pieces that I have done, and even the one that I'm working on right now, I want to make sure that people get an impact and they understand it, not exactly in my words, but they're able to grasp the reality from it, right? Um, in my political work, I tend to use a lot of metaphors. I do like metaphors. The last one that I did was actually when Kamala Harris and Joe Biden got elected. And I mean, after the many years that we went through of, well, there weren't so many, but it just felt like an eternity, like during the Trump era. And, you know, I wanted to create pieces of art that like signal a new beginning, sort of, right? And but also signal like what the past have looked like. And so if you see my art piece, this art piece, this digital art piece that I created was basically this like pond with like willow trees. And to me that all represented the United States at the time, just because like we were just like overwhelmed and overflowed with this misinformation, with like the misuse of politics, even funds, right? Um, all these things that like were actually like suffocating all of us. And right in the middle of this painting, you see it's just a small boat with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And I use the metaphor of the boat as a guidance, you know, like the new wave of guidance, like the new type of guidance that we need to like cope with what we have gone through in the past. I added another motif to Kamala Harris, which are lilies. And so lilies are in Renaissance, I think in like Northern Renaissance, they were seen as a you know, a flower of purity. So like you would always see a lily next to a virgin or something like that. And I wanted to include that into my illustration just because it was the first time that we have a woman in power, right? So somehow, I mean, this kind of like I describe her almost like some sort of like political virgin. Like we never had a woman in this position of power in the past. So she's brand new to this. And also like Joe Biden holding, yeah. And also Joe Biden is holding a lily to as a sign of like him accepting or like sharing the power, regardless of gender. So like I use these metaphors to it, and then like right at the back you see this like golden arc that is very similar to the one that you see in Paris, the Arco del Triunfo. I can only think of it in Spanish. But you see this arc, and I modified it to like include, you know, people of color being represented in this arc as like, you know, this communities feel it's now feeling or has a chance to feel empowered, and also immigrants on the other side, right? Yes. Like Muslim, Latinos, because immigration is also a big problem here. So now, after a couple of years, we're going to have a different discussion about that. But at the time, it just felt right, right? Like it just felt like this is a new triumph that we're going through, and we're going to be part of it. So yes, like I'm describing this illustration just to give you an idea of like how I do my political pieces, right? Like I'm going to tell you the truth, but in a truth that you're going to have to use your imagination to understand it. So it's almost surreal. It's almost poetic. I like to describe like my political art as poetic, just because I use so many metaphors and so many random references that like are not as graphic as people would expect from a political point of view, but I think they're capable to even endure the test of time because of it, right? Because it's coming from like an emotional and even a loving point of view that I put out there into my work. So yeah, I love politics, and I just to give you like the summary of what I wanted to say, because I speak too much.
No, it's okay.
I think images are great. You know, they're an important aspect of our communication in our daily lives. I mean, we communicate through images, especially nowadays. And so to me, when I see a political image, if I'm not able to understand the news because of their lingo and their vocabulary, I might get lost. But if I see an image of exactly the same story, I'm able to understand and have a better yeah, like have a better knowledge about what's going on, and then I can interpret it, and I can use my own critical skills to like make the connections about what is going on through an image. And I think it's really important to never despise art, regardless of like what the theme is and stuff, because there's so much information in an image that we tend to just overlook.
Mhm.
So yeah, politics and art, there should be more blend.
Continuing on this topic, I wanted to ask you a question about censorship. As an artist, I think there are a lot of artists that are concerned by this. What do you think about the censorship in the world of art? What do you think? What is provoking this?
Well, I mean, there has always been censorship in art history, right? Like, I mean, Vienna always went through, I mean, during the Art Nouveau movement, it went through a censorship type of thing where artists were not allowed to experiment with new forms of art. Paris had the same too. Like a lot of artists were not allowed to showcase their work because it was not quote unquote like fine art, since they were experimenting with new forms. Um, I think censorship, it's bullshit. Especially when an artist has a very good point of view and it's not just there for shock value, right? Like, I mean, I get it. I feel like shock value, it's always going to be there in whatever you create. It's always there. Either it's intentional or unintentional, but it's always there. And sometimes when when somebody's asking somebody to not do something, it just like makes you want to do it even more. So I don't know. So I don't really know. I mean, I think when there's a really good point of view, because I appreciate artists who create like somewhat of radical art, but like within a specific you know, explanation of why they did. Not like they're not just doing it because they wanted to shout, but they're doing it because there's some meaning behind it. Like I appreciate that artist, and I feel like that artist should not be censored, right? Like they should be able to express their own reality, because at the end, if he or she shares that narrative, then we're allowing ourselves to have the opportunity to learn, right? So why would you just block something out, like something that is actually coming from a very intellectual point of view? Why just shut it down when you can actually learn from it? Yeah.
So you are completely against it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you are on the you go on the way that says that we should respect others' point of view.
Right. I mean, and I get it. Like sometimes we just want to look the other way, but like there might be a reason why we have to look into it. And instead of just like being ethnocentric and just judging on our own standards and stuff, I think sometimes we have to allow ourselves the opportunity to see what they all meant, what that artist meant, and try to respect it. Yeah. Listen to it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Me personally, with Abora, I really plan to interview all aspects of people and all kind of personalities, because for me, everyone's point of view is interesting. Even if we don't agree, we need to agree. It's about respect, and it's about knowing the point of view of the other, and then have our own analyze of it. Because as a human being, I think that we are capable of distinguishing the difference between what is bad and what is good, and that's all. We don't need to be directed or showed. No one needs really to tell us. I mean, yeah, I think I agree with you 100%. What kind of society do you aspire to?
I mean, I'm very idealistic.
You're an idealistic, yes, I can see it, which is amazing.
Yeah,
you have your point of view. You're a visionary.
Well, I mean, as the world is becoming more globalized, I aspire for a society that is more comprehensive and has a better openness, if that's the right word to say, to other people, to other culture, other, you know, ideologies, other races. I mean, there's so there's such a great benefit in the times that we live in, because we have so much easy access and connection, whether we use it for the right way or not. But like, there's an easy connection now to stay in touch with people, like this interview alone. We've never met in person, but now I'm happy to like call you a friend. I'm happy to that you are giving me this space. I feel like I can trust you, and we have never met in person, right? So like, there's certain aspects of this society and the future that I'm quite hopeful for. I am hopeful for a future where people are more accepting of differences. Um, I'm hopeful for a world where, you know, judgment is not gonna be, you know, like the main, um, yeah, like the main concept to get to know somebody. Honesty, I feel like we need that a lot in this world, especially um, when we feel, when there is a lot of like institutions that keep on telling us a certain thing when they're not necessarily the right answer, right? Like, I feel like there's still a lot of like uh, misconstruction of, or construction of information that is not necessarily accurate, and I think we should be allowed to have that opportunity to have the truth of certain things.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, like I say, I'm gonna sound like a beauty pageant, you know, from like the 90s, but world peace. I want world peace. But it's true. Like, I really want that. Like, I want a diverse society. Like, I want a diverse society where like it's a constant exchange of knowledge, you
Mhm.
know, and appreciative of each other, and you know, are just nice and helpful.
I definitely agree with you. Well, we all aspire to a better world, more peaceful one, and a world that is filled with respect and love and affection and understanding. And so I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you on this topic too.
Yeah.
There was another intimate question I wanted to ask you: is how do you see yourself getting old?
And how do I see myself
Getting old, yeah,
getting old?
yeah.
I don't even see myself for tomorrow. Are you kidding me? I have no idea what I'm gonna do tomorrow. You're asking me for the future?
No, what I
Jeez.
mean is that not the future, but how do you see yourself like as an old person? How do you
Um,
see your end? Let's say your end of time. You know what I mean? 100 years maybe, or
yeah,
90 years old
I
Christian.
don't know if I want to live that much, but um, I want to keep my youthful spirit. I feel like I have somewhat of a naive, if you want to call it, almost innocent. I'm not that innocent, to be honest, but you know, kind of like, I don't know, like that factor of curiosity and happiness that I do describe myself as. Um, I want to see myself as an older man who's like super welcoming and just happy to have people around my home, and then I'll cook some drinks. I'll cook some food and then make some drinks, you know, and then we'll just like sit together and like talk about life. Um, I want to see myself as an older person who has great stories to share to my family, to my kids, to my grandchildren. Um, I hope, you know, to be an old person with my brother. And it sounds really random to say that, but like, I mean, me and my brother, he's my best friend, you know, and I love the motherfucker so much. I hate the fucking fact that I love him that much. But
Yeah,
yeah, he's just my family, and it'll be so nice just to have my brother witnessing my growth and like my family, and being being able to see his family grow, and I don't even have the kids around the house and just be like, hey, your son is such a just tell him something, you know, like those little things. I
Yeah.
just feel so happy about, and I want to share that with my brother, and obviously with the person that I marry. But you know, me and my brother are like the yin and yang, so I definitely want to see him when I get older. I don't want him to die
Yeah.
soon. I don't want to die right now. Like I don't want to leave him alone. Um, I also see myself as a very, very theatrical person. Like one thing that I hope I never change as I get older is the way I dress. Like I want to be that guy who's wearing Adidas in the morning with a crochet coat and you know flare pants and goes to the grocery store like this. I actually went to the grocery store like this, and they were like, "Oh, that's a nice hat." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. Thank you." Like that's one thing that I hope it never changes.
Yeah.
And just overall happy. I mean,
Mm.
what can I say? I want to be a happy old man.
Yeah. Happy.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's the wealth you wanna conquer.
I don't care about the money. Of course, I want to live a good life. You
Mm.
know, not necessarily opulent. I want to live just a good life.
Yeah.
But I want to die and say like, fuck, I am so happy with the life that I live.
Mm.
You know?
Totally get it. Totally get it. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing this with us. Thank you. And
Thank you
there is
for having
actually,
me.
well, getting into intimate question more and more. There is also this question I wanted to ask you as a friend. I wanted to know, how do you see, in general, how do you see what do you think about the feeling of love, the feeling of affection, uh, for the people that you have around you? Like you talked about your brother, the way you love him. Um, and it's very admirative. I mean, I love the way you talk about your brother, and I could see it. As I told you, I followed you, and I could see the way you share your life with your brother. And yeah, I want you to share with the people that are watching us uh, your vision of love, your vision of affection, your vision of the people you have around you.
Well, I've always said that there's only two paths in life. People tend to say that it's hate and love, but I always think that it's actually fear and love. I think the antithesis of love is fear. And um that's kind of like the moral or just the ideology that I try to follow every day. Just because I've noticed when I'm in love with the things that I do, or I'm with the people that I love the most, I become the wealthiest man you could ever think of. You know, like the most not wealthiest, the most fortunate person that you can think of. It's funny though, like you just reminded me of this story that I shared with my mom, and I made her cry. Um, but like you know, growing up Catholic, there was a moment in my life that I kind of like detached myself from it. I don't necessarily see myself as a Catholic, but like you know, because of tradition, you know, cultural tradition, family tradition, like I still follow certain you know certain things like going on Sunday to mass with my family, right? Like that, I practice that out of culture. But my mom was growing really concerned about the fact that I was becoming really distant towards God, and she asked me this question, and she's like, Christian, I'm just like really concerned that I don't see you as a person who believes in God. And I just said to her, I remember this because like she started crying. I just told her mom, but like it's just like I don't see God as the way you see it. I mean, when I see God is when I'm hanging out with you, with my mom, when I'm hanging out with you and I'm just having, you know, a cup of coffee and we're talking and we're like cracking jokes and you're telling me about your life experience as an adult, as a kid, you know, as a mother, as a single mother. When I'm with you in that connection, I am not only seeing you, but I'm seeing God. When I'm with my brother and I'm, you know, being silly and just childish and ridiculous at times, just like walking down the street with like this like super baggy pants and hats and stuff. And I'm like, Luis, you have to wear this. I mean, just take your picture. Like I see God in those moments, you know? I see God when my stepfather is just like, you know, giving me a lecture or just I'm having a drink with him and we're just chatting about life, and he's giving me his point of view. Like, I see God, and what I'm trying to say with this is that it's I know we've heard it before, but truthfully, God is love, and you get to see him when you're with the people that you love. And there's no there's no energy that can compare to it. Like, there's love is so powerful, and it's an incredible energy to just, live your life with. And even when I work, I see God. When I'm painting and when I'm doing my illustrations and I'm trying to do my best, I get to this like point of serenity that is so, so, so spiritual, and it's so immaculate almost. And yeah, I just feel blessed. Love is, love is just the greatest tool that we have in life, the greatest. And it doesn't, I believe love can be hard sometimes, but like, that's the fun of it too, right?
I totally understand your point.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Christian, for sharing with us all these personal and intimate stories and experiences. It shows what kind of person you are, and I'm sure that our audience will love the character you're presenting on this earth as a human being. There is also our last question that we ask everyone.
That's it? I wanted more. God damn it.
More? Well, we are already. It's been 1 hour. 1 hour, 10 minutes.
Like a rock star.
Well, we will make another one. I told you we will make another one. We will make another one and another one. Don't worry for that. And I'm waiting for you.
I'm here. You know how to find me now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And it's amazing to have you, Christian. And I'm glad and I'm happy and really I'm honored to call you a friend. Seriously. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that I have met someone like you, and the way we met is just crazy.
I know.
Well, it's about daring. I dared, you dared, I dared, and it's about daring also. Yeah. I want to really people to see this, and yeah, we have never met, as you said, and it's just amazing. Anyway, so there is this last question that we ask all the guests in Abora, and this question says, is who could you be if you weren't you?
Me. I don't want to be anybody else. I want to be me. We've gone through this. My life story can't compare to anybody else's life story. My knowledge can't compare to anybody else's knowledge. And like, it's so hard because I have gone through so many experiences in my life that I'm just like, fuck, like, why me? Right? Like, I feel anybody can relate to that emotion of like, why me? Why this has had to happen to me? But you know what? If somebody came and told me, hey, we're gonna give you a reset button to start your life again, I wouldn't do it. And if I do, I will pick the same life that I have right now, because I really, really love my life experiences. I really love the people that I've met. I really love my work. I even love my hardships and battles. They were worth it to fight for it. Like, I was scarred, and sometimes I feel like I'm still scarred by those experiences, but fuck, they are so fucking beautiful. They're so beautiful. And my real father once told me this. It's like, a rose without spikes it doesn't have the same type of beauty. And I think that's true. I like to visualize myself as a rose that is not perfect, but it has pain that made it this beautiful. And I don't know, I that's how I want to see myself. I want to see myself that, like, that it was worth for me to have this life. And I think it is, and I feel like it is. And it makes me really happy. I don't want to be anybody else. I love myself. And it's taken me this long to love myself, and it's worth it.
Well, let's make an exception. Actually, I want to ask you another question, just freelance, just like this, just freestyle.
Okay.
I would love actually to. I would love you to tell someone to tell something. Sorry, to people who are watching us. Is that what would you advise people to vision in their life? What would be your advice to the society and to our audience? Let's say, let's talk to the people that are watching us. What would you, yeah, what would be your advice
Huh.
from the little you know?
My advice would be that life is really difficult. My advice is that life is really difficult, but it's meant to be like that so you can be able to appreciate your inner strength, right? If it was easy, life would be so easy. Like it would be so meaningless. And acknowledging how hard it is, it 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 sets you free almost, right? It gives you the freedom that you need to like create whatever you want. And I think it's important to just kind of have the awareness, but do not be afraid about life. Do not be afraid of criticism. Do not be afraid of your family. Do not be afraid of your, the voices in your head. Like, no, they're there. So just instead of just trying to go around it or just sitting because you don't want to be bothered by them, jump the fucking obstacle, they just overcome it, and you'll see like the best version of yourself is going to be on the other side, and you're going to love it. Like you really are going to love it. So just take the courage, have the strength, and fuck it, have the love that we all deserve, and you'll see how great it is on the other side.
Yeah,
it is so much fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us this advice. And again, thank you so much for your presence and for accepting to be our guest. I have nothing to say except that, man. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And yeah, this was Abora Magazine, Abora Talk with Cristian Paul, the artist, the illustrator, and the wise man. Thank you for Thank you for tuning in, and see you soon. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.